Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back from lunch. I hope everybody had a good break. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Khatie. I'm Canadian, so everybody welcome to Canada for the 25th Mysterium Convention. It's year 25. And the 20th anniversary of Myst IV. And so our first of 3 Myst IV panels today is called Designing Worlds. And with us today we have Sebastien Yelle, Patrick Fortier, and Mary DeMarle. I'm going to let each of you introduce yourself and tell us how you got into the world of making video games.
Okay. I was about to become an elementary school teacher, and I decided to take a break and to work at Ubisoft for something like 6 months testing video games. It was random that I used to work on the translation of Myst III Exile in, I think, South Korean or something like that. I played Myst 1 and I finished. Who finished? Riven. I finished Riven. So, and then Ubisoft was responsible to create Myst 4. And when this happened, I just put everything on the side for 2 years, maybe 2.5. To work on Myst 4, for me, it was a life. It's still a life experience, very important in my achievement. I worked on Cirrus Age and a little bit on Haven also. And after that, my job was done in the video game industry, and now I'm teaching for the last 20 years. Voilà.
Hi, so my name is Patrick Fortier. I was at Ubisoft when Ubisoft Montreal started back in 1997. I knew I wanted to work there. I knew I had no experience, and they hired me, I guess. I was passionate. I started testing like you. So I'd been working. I did a couple of titles. I did a Playmobil game with Katrin Raw, who was producer on. That's where I got to know her. And then I did a racing game, Speed Devils, on the Dreamcast, which is one of my favorite consoles ever. Game was alright. And then I worked with Catherine again on Jungle Book, which was like a kind of a Dance Dance Revolution type game or something like that. And then I was working on some other project. I think that got canned. I think it was like a sequel to whatever it was at Ubisoft, and Catherine was looking for somebody for Myst IV because I think Ubisoft, they purchased Brother Bond. They got Prince of Persia and Myst at the same time, and then so that gave way to Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, and then the Myst team just got started, and there was George too that was there as the and. He was cool. He had already designed a lot. Yeah, well, no. You didn't use, but he had ideas. Oh yeah. So and Anyway, so I joined. So I joined the project. I think it had been started for a couple of months. I think, or when I joined. But then I stayed, throughout the duration and shipped it, and then I stayed at Ubisoft a little bit later. And then did some other stuff at other companies, and then I got to work with Mary again at Eidos Montreal on Deus Ex: Mankind Divided, and then more recently on Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy again with Mary. That was a lot of fun, and I'm still there at Eidos Montreal right now.
And I'm Mary DeMarle, and I actually got introduced to games because of Myst. But I already kind of said that in my bio, so I'm not going to talk about that now. But I was living in California. I'm originally from Rochester, New York, but dual citizen. Now I'm Canadian and American. I was living in Rochester, New York. I wanted to work in the film industry. I had gotten a degree in Syracuse University in film and television, and I moved out to California and worked in the film industry for a couple of years. And then an old college friend said her boyfriend was a programmer working at a studio called Presto Studios in San Diego, and they were looking for another writer. So I went and I joined them. It was my first experience writing games. I was actually hired to work on the Journeyman Project, Journeyman Project 4. But like 3 months after I got there, Broderbund was bought by Activision and they canceled the project. And I'm like, oh, goodness, I relocated here and you already have 2 writers and you don't have a project. What's going to happen? But luckily, they kept me and then we started working on Myst 3. So Myst 3 was my first real game. And after that, I went and Ubisoft wanted me to come to Montreal and work on Myst 4. So I did that. I also worked on Homeworld 2, I think it was at the time, and stuff. And then just kind of my whole life has been games since then. Pat has been in my life for a long time because of the games we worked on. And after Ubisoft, I went to Eidos as well and worked on the Deus Ex Human Revolution and then Mankind Divided. And then Guardians of the Galaxy, which was a real fun game to work on. And then I left there 2 years ago, and I am now at BioWare. So, and so that's my whole short, condensed history.
So you kind of already answered the next question that I have, but I was going to ask how you first discovered Myst. So you had played it before you joined Ubisoft. Had you played it before you joined Ubisoft?
I had. I didn't manage to play it when it originally came out because I was a poor student. I didn't have a good computer.
Sure.
And my friends didn't have like good computers. So actually I had to wait for like a console port. I'm a big console guy. And so I had a Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
And that's where I played the original Myst. And I hadn't quite finished it. I think I was like maybe like 3/4 into it. By then, but when we started the project, that's what all of us did actually. We read like all the books and we played all the games, and I replayed Myst and Riven and Exile, and I remember this one particular moment that was I was like, okay, I think I'm starting to be into this project because I dreamed of a solution to
a puzzle.
Yeah, it was the elevator that you had to raise the elevator to go down.
Yes.
And I dreamed about that, and then I was like, oh wait, what? And then I tried it, and it worked, and I was like, okay, this is good. I think it's a good sign that I'm starting to get into it.
Mary, had you played any of them before you went to Presto?
Yeah, I actually played Myst. My sister was is heavily into the computer industry as a graphic designer. So she had one of the first big Macs. This was when, and at that time, Myst was shipped with the new Macs. And I was visiting her and her husband. They live in Vermont. And I was there for like 2 weeks. And she's like, hey, you want to try this strange game or whatever this is that has been shipped with my thing? So we started working on it together. And we spent a long time working in the beginning. And my brother-in-law and my sister both kind of finally got bored because we weren't getting anywhere. And I remember they went and they were watching 60 Minutes. And I was still tinkering with it, and all of a sudden I was like, I think I figured something out. I think I got this. And so I tried it, and I'm like, guys, and they're like, oh my God, she got something. And we solved the first puzzle, and then I played the whole thing. And that was long before I even got into games. So that's when I played Myst, and little did I know that several years later, quite a few years later, I would be working on the Myst game. Riven, I did not play. I played that when when I was hired at Presto, and we knew we were doing Myst. Then I played it, and I did complete it, but I did use the strategy guide because I was like, oh, this is too much. So.
Well, some of us used Cyan Chat to help us through, so that's okay. So can you tell us what specifically you did on the Myst 4 team? And you touched on that you were part of Spire and Haven, but and also what you're most proud of. Like what are some of your best memories about working on it?
It's been like 20 years ago. I remember at first Patrick he made my interview to work with the team. Before I start to work on Spire, we work like 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
We got to speak more about your interview because we're recruiting people. We're recruiting designers at Ubisoft, and this is a really different type of game that Ubisoft was making at the time. So nobody really had a lot of experience making puzzles and working on this genre. So we're looking like for very, targeting very specific profiles. And with Catherine, we wrote down like, okay, here's what we'd like, and people can submit, and it's like a 1-page thing, and describe generally what the puzzle would be, and this, and then so this guy, he sends in, it's like 5-6 pages, super detailed diagrams. The whole puzzle is completely designed. Every little detail is there. The backstory, every and there's like arts and arrows and it's like super precise. And it's like, okay, I'm looking at Catherine. And I'm like, okay, so he didn't really follow the instructions per se, but I'm gonna say like we definitely want this guy. and sure enough, he was tremendous. And
thank you, Patrick. Well, probably I'm most proud in the world of ideas because when you have these ideas, it was my job to create them, and then we are trying with the technology and everything to make it happen inside the computer. And what I'm really proud of the musical instrument in the Cirrus Age, that is like based on I read a lot about natural frequencies and crystal, and I remember showing a movie about the Tacoma Bridge that was destroyed in the United States. It was an inspiration, so maybe I'm proud. I think I designed the old Spire from the top to bottom, and all the different and various puzzle in it, which I'm quite proud of this. At first, it was supposed to be a world with optical illusion, and it's not working in the world of Myst. When in real life you can do this, but when you play the video game, the illusion is just created because we remove something. And I worked on Haven for a couple of months, trying to finish this age. And this is like, I'm not proud of it, but I think I'm proud a little bit. I'm the one who designed the monkey puzzle at the end. And yesterday I watched a YouTuber playing the whole game because I needed to to remember it. And when the how do we call this, the omnivore, the monkey, we call them the mangry. Thank you. And they said that this is the most famous and worst puzzle in the old Myst universe. So I'll take it. It's complicated to create puzzles with animals, with things that are alive, because when you do mechanisms and everything, it's easy. But animals, they are not machine.
It's all based on sound, so some of us have vision impairment. Yeah, that's great.
And Sebastien had a great influence on all the puzzles in terms of structuring a pipeline and how to go about constructing them and thinking about steps. And he was really analytical about the types of puzzles, and it helped me in terms of figuring out, like, for the game we wanted to have a variety of different types, like more mathematical, more observation, more this and that, and then I don't know if you still have that. I don't have it, I didn't find it in my little papers that I brought, but we had made like a breakdown chart of all the puzzles so that we could figure out some you have to remember that back in the days at Ubisoft, like, we're all very new at this, everybody's very young, and even Ubisoft is very young. So we were talking about, like, there was no playtest lab back then, which baffles my mind, like how we could have shipped the game without playtesting it. But so things like that where so us figuring that out and figuring out like, okay, like what makes a puzzle more difficult, how many steps are there, is the solution in front of you, is there separation between the steps, is there, there's a whole breakdown of all kinds of things. And I learned a lot about puzzles through you, and it helped all the other designers on the team. And so he had a tremendous influence on the puzzle design on the game. It was a lot of fun.
It was a great experiment.
The day that I joined, you guys had me. I met you all, and then you're like, "Come here." And you sat me down, and you're like,
taking advantage
"Play."
of everybody.
I was so mortified. Like anybody who walked in, you're like, "Play," and we're like, "What?" And they sat me down, and I started to play, and I didn't know. I mean, at first you enter, and you're like, "Oh wow!" It was the full thing. Yisha wasn't in, but everything else was in, and so there was like a little, I don't know, like a wireframe where she was, yeah. And also, I don't know if you'll remember this, but Rand hadn't done his part yet, so you were the voice that kept saying, "Try moving the slider." And speaking of having dreams about a Myst game, I heard your voice saying, "Try moving the slider" for months and months. Anyway,
that sounds more like nightmares than
But
dreams.
I just remember sitting down and playing, and Myst games, right? If you can't get it right away, you feel so dumb and embarrassed. And I had like 8 people around me that were all like crowding in, like, what's she going to do? And how does this make you feel? And where are her eyes going? Like you were observing everything anybody who played was doing because of that lack of play test. So I just remember being so self-conscious going, guys, I'm not the person to test a game. I'm like your dumbest audience. But anyway, it was very exciting to be, to see it early on in early days like that. So thank you. So tell us what you did on the game.
I was the creative director on the game. It was my first game doing that. We were talking a little bit even with Meinert and Mary, and I think, looking back now, it's like we were so young doing this and we had so little experience, and obviously we do things like really differently now, but I was proud of like we definitely went at it like all out. There's no regrets that we didn't like go all in or invest ourselves, or we put in everything that we had back then, and obviously we could do things a little bit better. But like we were learning, it was a new team, that had never worked with one another, so like there's like personalities, different people, and Myst is it's a series that it's different things to different people. Some people love the ambiance. Some people love the challenge of the puzzles. Some people like the story. Some people like everything, the whole immersion of everything. So it's difficult, like you're working with a lot of people that are obviously passionate about the franchise, but for them, there's different things that they'd like to focus on, or different things that they. But overall, we did all right, and what I liked is it turned out pretty much the way that in terms of. Overall direction, I think it turned out the way that we were aiming for. Like we wanted to bring that world to life in ways beyond what it had been at the time, without being able to go like full 3D real time. So it was really important for me the whole idea of like all these little animations and the wind and the trees and being able to tap on things. And I remember my sound designer kind of had a heart attack when I told them about doing that, and they had to develop technology to put like little slices of panels on objects and then link it to like a bank of sounds, and then the Foley for like every single little thing, like it took them forever, but I just felt it added a lot of life and immersion into the game, and those things were important. And then overall, in terms of we had like keywords, and we started working in a pretty top-down way on that game. It was early days maybe of what ultimately became our methodology, but there was a lot of thought put into what do we want players to experience, what do we want them to feel. Tomana was really important at the beginning. We got it all wrong at the beginning. It was a mess, and then we got Meinert, and maybe we'll talk about that in later. But and then he turned it around and made it what it became and what it needed it to be, and then it kind of paved the way for the rest of the game. And but those intentions were pretty clear at the beginning. It was like, okay, we want Tomana to feel really welcoming and warm and inviting, and then after the events that transpire, it's like, okay, now it should feel a little gloomy, a little violated. Like, okay, something happened here, and it's the same environment, but I don't feel safe anymore, and I want to, and all of those things. I think they came through, and then, obviously, looking back. Maybe we do, a little bit more play testing. We do some puzzles a little differently, and we do things a little bit differently. But overall, I thought, like we wanted to do something that was, bring it a little further. Also do something that was like narratively that was still important to the franchise, to the universe, and not feel like some side quest or some other little thing that Atris did. And it turned out all right,
Yeah, it brought the family story forward,
Yeah.
but it also, Genevieve has said a couple things. Number one, she has said that because Myst ushered in kind of the age of the disc technology, and then Riven pushed it further with graphical, and and then you did 3D stuff in Myst 3, and so she wanted Tomana especially to feel like when the person enters the game that they could tell, oh, it's the technology has been further advanced, like birds flying in the wind.
It was a lot of discussions about doing that, because there's a lot of artists, and we had some great artists, and they really wanted to push things graphically, and there was a lot of limitations that came with that bubble technology, and it was like, where do we go? Do we go for top quality resolution, high end, but it's going to be back to Riven like tech, or do we keep the bubble technology and kind of bring things to life and bring something different, but it's not going to be like the sharpest, highest resolution? So there was a lot of for and against, like I don't know what we turned out. We decided to make that decision because we thought it offered something a little bit more different and new to the franchise, but it was something that we struggled with for sure, like which direction should we take with it.
She was really proud of the result because she feels like, we saw a little bit of Tomana in Myst 3, and then you're kind of suddenly, action starts and you're sucked away.
It was so important to connect with that node. It was like, this is the node.
Right.
It needs to make sense.
No, absolutely.
The door has to be the same.
But she wanted it all to feel like, oh, now we finally get a glimpse of everything behind. It's warm, welcoming, like you said, and it's home. Like we've all kind of hungered to see a little bit more of how they lived and where they were and stuff. So it was perfect that way, I thought. Mary, tell everybody what you did and what you're most proud of.
Well, these guys got Myst IV covered. So, and working with these guys was really, really great. It was I always tell the story about how here we are, we're a bunch of designers. Our desks are in a circle, but our backs are to each other the entire time. And you'd be working, and then all of a sudden you get this instant message, like, and it'd be Sebastien asked me a question, and I'd be like, why aren't you just poking me on the shoulder and asking me? And he's like, oh, why are you doing it through technology? And he's like, well, maybe you're busy. But anyway, so the things that I kind of remember were more with Exile, because that was my first real video game industry experience, etc. And when I started at Presto, I was only the third woman hired in the company, and I was the first one who wasn't an executive assistant. So that was fun, and I'm from a big family of 8 children. There's 4 girls, 4 boys, but I grew up with the boys, so it was like I'm number 6 of 8, not 7 of 9, and so I grew up with boys, so I was totally comfortable in that environment. But I remember when we were trying to come up with the first trailer for the game, and the guys were all pitching all these ideas and all this stuff, and I kept listening to all their ideas, and I was like, this isn't Myst, they're not getting it. And so then I speak better through my writing, so I wrote a script, and I wrote the script, and then I handed it to my boss, and he read it. He was like, okay, maybe, and then we got onto a conference call with our producer, Daniel Irish, who was up in, he was in San Francisco at Ubisoft. And they sent him their ideas and all this stuff, and he's like, "Yeah, well, you got anything else?" And then my boss was like, "Well, Mary wrote this script," and so they send it to him, and he's like, "Oh my God, this is perfect! This is perfect!" And so we ended up doing that trailer, and that was the first release. And it also taught me a lot about fans, because basically what we did in that trailer is we used a lot of concept art. And we put in all this concept art into this trailer to make it beautiful and all this stuff. And then we saw the fan reaction as they start analyzing every single piece. And we had like names on there, and we had things like temporary names like the material age instead of amateria or whatever. And we're like, oh my God, they're tearing it. I mean, they're discovering so much. Yeah. So that was a really big lesson for me in that. So
that trailer was beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
Because everybody who had played Myst and Riven and had heard there was a third Myst game, when we saw that trailer, like, we all lost our shit. Like, it was so good. So thank you for that.
It would have been nice for you to share that revelation when we did Myst. For the first screenshot that we sent was complete. Like, we totally did not understand that, and they there was so much meaning that they got from like one screenshot, and then they saw like reflections in the window because the screenshot was taken
of the screen.
And there was like something else in the back, and they saw that too. And then there's an analysis
to amplify it to see the code on the
like,
screen.
Oh my God!
So, okay, as a community manager working on that, I can tell you that at the time that happened, you guys were all like, "Oh no, they're going to be able to read." I'm like, "This is all good. This is all good." Like, we want them to be engaged and looking for stuff rather than, ambivalent or complacent or whatever. So it was all good. I mean, I don't think they discovered anything we didn't want them to see.
And at that point, it was kind of like, well, if they did, there's nothing we can do about
right,
it. At
exactly.
this point, so.
Okay, so we'll start with Mary this time. Is there anything you wish fans knew about the team or the game, for Myst IV specifically, while you were making it, as you're sitting there before it's announced or even after it's announced? Is there anything you think, oh, I wish I could just tell the fans this? Like, I wish they understood something specific.
I got it. See, I don't like going first because I got to think.
Patrick can go first.
I don't know. Mary's first.
So repeat the question.
Okay, so for example, I'll use myself as an example. I wish when I sat down to play for the very first time, I wish I could have turned my camera on and screamed for everybody here, like, guys, look what I get to do. And, I wish every single one of you could have sat there with me and just been me, because it's an incredible feeling. So you must have been working on, as a fan before you worked on the games, there must have been a time where you're like, oh, I wish I could tell people that I'm doing this, or I wish I could show them that this is how things work, that, because a lot of time they don't see how things get made. They don't see the making of.
I know on my end, I wish, because I knew there was the fans were a little nervous, I think, when Ubisoft acquired it, and they thought maybe we were just going to handle it as, it's just some generic project, ship it, get it out the door, and not a lot of love. And I would have wanted them to see the team and see and people like Sebastien and other people that were so passionate and that were really giving their all. And then I don't remember what year it was, the Mysterium that we attended, but
2004 in Toronto.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay. So
20 years ago.
So after we did that, then I would have wanted the reverse. I meeting the fans and seeing the interaction with the people and the Mysterium. It was amazing. It was something I really remembered, and it just made me treasure the opportunity to be working on that project all the much more. And and there was so much love, and there was just so much passion, that was shared, and energy from the people. And I wanted to bring that to the team and say, well, here's the people expecting things, and here's who we're making it for, and they're as passionate as we are. And that would have been like, I could try to share it a little bit with them, but it wasn't like being there. And I was like, no, like, you're not all these extra hours that you're putting in and coming in on the weekends and redoing things because it crashed in the render, and we wasted a week of rendering, and we got to redo it. And it's like, there's a reason why we're doing that. And it
was worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's been a while, obviously, and my memory isn't all the greatest these days. So it is hard to remember real parts of it. In fact, it was like Patrick was reading me the story for Myst IV, the Wikipedia entry, and it was like, oh yeah, that's right, that was what we did, wasn't it? So, but I remembered as we were doing it, one of the things that I was really excited about when I was working on it was the whole concept of Serenia and the memory cubes and all that stuff, and how the development of that came through a variety of sources. We were all working on it. There was another designer, David Lecar, who was very into fables and myths of other countries and stuff. And at the time that we were in the midst of working on it, here in Montreal, there was the every, I think, couple of years, there's the International Flower Sculpture Contest that goes on in Montreal. And it's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous stuff. And that year, while we were just finishing it, and we were putting in all the myths for Serenia and all that stuff and building all that lore. And the festival came, and my sister came up from Vermont to visit, and we stumbled on this thing. And it just happened that year the competition was all focused on fables and folklore and myth. And so I remember walking through that and seeing all these beautiful sculptures and thinking about Serenia and thinking about some of the artwork that was going in to create their history and their world. And I remember at the time being, this is really deep and this is really, really cool. And I cannot wait for people to get exposed to it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. And you've mentioned your sister a couple times. That's Anne, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, go ahead. What are you most proud of? And I mean, inspire, but you know.
I don't know. I don't know what to say. Maybe when we were there, it was very intense, and like you cannot see the forest because you got trees all around yourself, and as a designer, and the others are artists. Everybody was working so hard for their own department, but maybe passion. Yeah. And at some point, when I heard, because I wasn't in the marketing at all, I was always working inside my computer, sending mail to Mary, and thinking about puzzles and how to repair this and how to make this funnier or to create the hotspot. I remember, there's there's many squares everywhere, and we, Yeah, that's it. Tick. And we, at some point, maybe I forgot that I was working for, people, for fan like me, but, other fan that I don't know. And I really appreciate what you said, about the love that you see through the fan. But at some point, I remember that when I was on Myst, it was really important for me. I would have, excuse my English, by the way, I would have been there as long if, the design team, Patrick, Mary, David, and many others that was around us, and we were, maybe once a month at least, we were eating together, we were partying, we went to the country, went at the people place, we were, bonding all together. It was a great experience, and I think I know that Myst IV, when I read stuff on the web, is not the favorite one, is not the perfect one, but for me it was a perfect job. Though.
Oh, that's nice. So, just super quickly, and then we'll go to fan questions. How many of you got to be in the room when they were filming the live action stuff? Were you there too?
A little bit, but not a lot. No.
I knew you were. Okay. So now we have time for some fan questions, if you've got some for us, Hannah. Well, first, let's take a question from inside the room, and then we'll go back and forth online and then in person.
This is for any of you that have an answer to this. Is there any piece of cut area or cut story beat or something that you wish got into the game but didn't manage to get in?
Yes.
So many.
There was right at the beginning of Tamana, the whole the telescope puzzle led to the rooftop and there was one node outside on the rooftop that oversaw all of Tamana, and it was the most beautiful thing, and it was the reward for doing the telescope, and then at the end we just couldn't, because it was a shot of all of Tamana, then we needed to animate like everything in that node, and it was too much. The rendering time was too much, and so we had to cut the node, and Genevieve had to make that decision, and it hurt. And I still remember, and I still get confused sometimes. I replayed the game, I think, I don't know, like 10 years ago or something like that, and I got on the telescope, and I'm like, where's the, how come I can't go up? And then I forgot, because we cut it right at the last minute for budget reasons. So, but it was a beautiful shot, and I thought it just capped that area of Atris's lab really well. So that was a hard one.
And Avon was like, the size of Avon was double. We cut it like maybe a little part at a time, and until we have this little small world, and I designed a couple of living being in Cirrus H, living creature, but it was too much for this crystal world.
I do. It's from Ewan K. He directs this question to Sebastien, but any of you are welcome to answer if you have an answer. How did you approach designing a Myst age?
Which one?
Just in general, how did you approach the concept of designing an age?
For me, it's like an escape game. You create a huge map, and you have to think about the story at the same time. So everything is bounded together. It's not perfect, but when we do it right, it works. So what the player will do first, and then second, and I used to be moniteur de camp de jour, day camp monitor, and I was creating a lot of puzzles with the kids. Des chasse au treasure hunt. I design it like this. So you need the information of the first spot, and the second, and the third, and the fourth, and then you take all of this and you put it together, and this will open the next puzzle. But the next puzzle will need 3 other things that you didn't thought about it. So you need to go back in the various zones. So that's the way. Like 20 years ago, I don't remember how I was able just to create
keep track of everything,
and everything was working. And if you pull a string, everything will fall down. So that's pretty much it.
Do we have another room question?
So, Sebastien, you created 2 of the hardest puzzles in Myst IV. So thank you, but also, so for the other 2 panelists, if you don't mind, what puzzle were you guys involved in that's like your favorite puzzle, whether it be the writing or creating it or animating it, whatever? Which are the puzzle you're most proud of?
I always thought I would be able to make a few puzzles myself, and I turned out to not have a lot of time. The one I was most involved in was the first one with Atris, and the voice that Khatie still has nightmares about. Playing it again now, I was like, I think it's too long. Like the second, just one thing would have been enough. But the vision there was like, it'd be nice to feel like you're actually working with Atris, and that he's speaking to you, and that he's responding to what you're doing, and that you really feel like. So it drags on maybe a little bit too long, but it's more for the experience overall that I thought it was interesting, and it gave something something different.
I think it was cool.
Yeah, and puzzle design is a true talent, and it's really good that we have people who were hired to do it. So I was not one of those people, so I didn't have to. And actually, I remember because on Exile, I remember in the elevator, there's a little puzzle in the elevator, and it is created specifically that you have to get the journal. It's a code. You cannot do it. But we did play test at Presto. And I remember watching somebody do it, and they didn't have the code, and they figured it out. And we were like, how did you figure this out? And they told us, oh, well, it made sense. And you heard the entire story they built in their head. And their story kind of made sense. And they solved it. And I was like, I'm never designing any puzzles ever. Never.
So we have another online question that actually follows pretty naturally from that. Bastico P brings up the concept of puzzles being organic. And integrated into the world that way versus external. Is that something that you considered at all in your design?
Yeah, that was a fundamental thing that actually one of the first I think I have it here. I don't know if I can pull this out elegantly, but one of the first books that I read was this one, right? So that really was it opened my eyes to so many things on like how Riven was made and the evolution from Myst and then how everything was integrated. So there was a lot of thought put into that and being true to the tradition. It was obviously like my first stab at it and the team's first Myst game, but we were thinking about this all the time and we spent a lot of time with Mary because before, handing out and starting to make the age, then we got to figure out like, okay, what's the story that we're trying to tell? What are the emotions that we're trying to convey? It's not just, it's the visuals, it's the story, it's what you're reading. And then we broke it down in terms of like, what are narrative vehicles and like this will be like just show don't tell in a room, this will be in a journal, this will be part of it, and we're always every time we're making puzzles or making anything, like we're really thinking like, okay, these characters are there inhabiting this world, what are they going through? I remember like I think it was in Atris's bedroom or no, he has his desk at some point, his study, and one of the artists like he spilled the ink, because it's like, oh, well, it's much more dynamic and it looks good. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not what we're trying to convey about it. Yeah, but he probably does spill stuff sometimes. And I'm like, yeah, but not on this day that we're making this permanent note of, and then we're trying to reflect that Atris is very methodical and precise. And, so we don't want that, even though, visually it looks better. That's not what we're looking for right now because it's not conveying the right thing. And we would do that for every little thing. And even like, I remember was it the amulet that you came up with narratively? And I snatched it and I from you, and then I put it into the.
It's funny how that happens when you're working in a team environment. Somebody has an idea, and I wanted the amulet for some reason to symbolize something, and then the next thing I know, someone else, it sparks for you some idea, and it sparks for others, and suddenly this little idea that I had becomes so much more important in the whole view of it, and it's because of the collaboration of everybody who's working on it.
Do you remember the day that we all got in a tiny little room? I don't think it was the whole team. I think there was 8 or 9 of us, and we decided we need to come up for a tagline for the game. And we started, and there was one wall that was a whiteboard. You must have both been there, and David was there. And we just started throwing out everything out there, like boys will be boys. And, like we literally, we started saying, like which one will, like, everything we could think of, and then we'd change all the adjectives and all the nouns and all that. It was the process like Philip does for his films and stuff, because I've seen him do it. And I was fascinated. I was kind of sitting there watching everybody just churn and churn and churn. And we started voting, we'd take 10 of them and we'd vote on our favorites, and then we'd move those over and then we'd mix them up again. And it was, it was a couple of hours, but at the end we ended up coming up with the tagline about, which I don't even remember what it was.
I don't remember what the tagline.
Something like, I don't know, like it was something about the 2 brothers or something about family troubles. Or does anyone remember what the tagline of?
Oh.
What? Every family.
This one has 2.
Every family has a secret. This one has 2.
That's a good tagline.
That's pretty good. So that's, I guess, what we came up with on the day. But I just remember that particular day and being there and witnessing that process. That was pretty.
It's funny how like
amazing.
everything is in everything, because you're talking about that, and we had someone helping us run that brainstorm, and I forget Alaire, but I forget his name. He passed away recently, actually, because he was. But he was. I was speaking with Jay, another creative director in the industry, was talking about that same individual and the influence that he had on him, and helping and on me as well. And it was like just every little thing, and we're just looking for a tagline, but being in contact with him and seeing how he worked and how he managed to produce that result, it was something that influenced a lot of people. So that person had a lot of influence in the industry later, on a lot of people, and it's every little thing counts, and it's interesting that you
and
bring
I
that
can
up.
say, as someone who's worked in games on and off for 20 years now, that things that fans say or write or discuss in topics, in forum topics or Discord or wherever, devs read everything, and so that might place a seed of doubt or a seed of an idea or whatever. You never know where your inspiration is going to come from. So don't think that you don't have huge influence on game devs. Not just
sometimes
Myst,
you guys come up with better stories than we did, and then we steal them.
yeah. Well, the theorizing is great. Yeah. We have time for.
Yep, we'll take another room question. I'm going to go to this side.
Hi, you'd mentioned earlier that the Flower Sculpture Festival had an influence on like the design of Serenia and part of the story there. I'm wondering, and this is for everybody, was there anything else about like your personal lives or experiences like in or around Montreal that made it into the game?
I was new to Montreal, so because I had been living in San Diego, and then I came here to work on that. So everything in Montreal was new. I don't know if there was much there that influenced me.
Yeah, nothing springs to mind. I don't know, Sebastien.
Well, me neither, because like we are in the world of Myst. We're not in Montreal, so we don't put Fleur de Lysée hidden somewhere inside the. No, I have no memories of it.
Are there any Easter eggs in the game that people haven't found? Easter eggs? Patrick would know.
I would have known at some point when I was younger and I had my memory.
You have to come to more Mysterium.
We did want to hide a note in there, but I think we didn't have the budget for it.
I remember people remove stuff that we didn't want there, like artists that was working with us that make little small jokes. They put stuff and they are and me as the designer of the age, it was like, no, remove that from the world. This is not part of this kind of prison age. So maybe I make them removed. Sorry.
But there might be a few little personal things in there, but to be honest, it was a real struggle, like just managing to ship the game on time, and all of our there was very, very precious little resource left for Easter eggs. So we wished we could have put more, but we didn't really manage to.
Yeah, there's one. It's not one that got in or anything, but and it may have actually been Exile. I remember a live action shoot, and we were filming. I think it was Exile, because I think we were filming Brad Dourif running over a bridge over and over again. And then at one point, the producer yells, "Everybody run over the bridge!" So we did, and we all ran over the bridge, and they filmed it, and then they were like, "We'll put it in as an Easter egg in that moment," but I don't think it ever got in because that's expensive.
That would be fun. We need to find that and just show it at a convention sometime.
So Revelation Fan 10 asks, this is probably more for Mary, what inspired the Serenia Spirit Guides? It was such a new concept for the Myst franchise. How long was that part of the project?
Again, I think it was multiple influences. Like did David, was he involved in Serenia? Was he the designer on that? Yeah.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, so David Lacar and I worked a lot on the different things. So a lot of it had to do with the different, again, I said he was the one who was really into folklore and fables and into stuff like that. And I remember I was really excited at one point where we realized that like the memory tree was a mushroom and it was a fungus. And then I got all excited because the scientist, my father's a scientist, and the scientist in me was like, oh my God, mushrooms, they take the dead and they reconvert them into life. And this is so perfect and everything. So there was that. So again, I think it's a combination of, I think David had an awful lot to do with it. And he brought a lot of ideas to it.
I think there was also like the technological desire to do something a little bit different with like 3D and try to see how we could push things, but still merge it in a logical way, and then do something different a little bit, and outside of something that we could add to the franchise that was a little bit new and different. So we did have that mindset as well.
So we'll go back to taking another room question. When you ask your question, can you first say your name so that the people on the stream know who's speaking?
Because they love you.
Mine's related for the last question. How do you get Peter Gabriel involved in Myst? I mean, did the song come before or after the puzzles or the design? Or
that was a Ubisoft France thing.
Yeah,
that was Didier Lord.
Didier, yeah, I think he was working on the. I think beyond the game that you get to play and enjoy as fans. When we're making it, we're fans too, and we want to craft it. But there's also like concerns of okay, we're can we broaden the audience, and can we sell enough, and can we have some kind of a marketing coup and impact or something like that. So there, I think Didier was the head of all of Ubisoft music or whatever. So he's looking at different deals here and there, and then so he felt that there was a connection maybe that there could be made with Myst, and it was because he had a rapport, I think, with Peter's people, and we all drove up. We all went up there. Made a trip and met Peter and his crew. And
Jack was
and
there.
Some of us are very jealous.
I know. I was going to say we didn't all go, but Jack and Genevieve were there, and you were. I didn't know you were there.
I was there. Yeah, and I have this little tiny picture, and Peter's like pressing down my shoulders because he wants to be taller than me on the picture. And he managed it. But so it was fun meeting them. But I think that was it. They wanted to do something a little bit special. They felt maybe like Peter fans would maybe be interested in this kind of a franchise. I think we were weary of it at the beginning. I was like, can we do this? And does it look? We don't want to look like we're selling out. Does it look forced? Does it look?
Is it organic?
Yeah, is it organic? So that was a concern. But ultimately, I think we felt it did more good than bad, in terms of the project. And then we weaved it into we felt there was something that could be done there organically with what David was doing with the dream and all of that, So we felt it was a good match, and it wasn't like just a cheap little
it worked together. Yep. And he was used in Uru as well. Yeah, we're big Peter fans here.
All right, so our next question is, this is from you. Do you want me to ask it?
I posted it in this Discord, so, but anyway, how much leeway did Cyan have saying, lore and story-wise, saying, you can't do this, you can do this regarding the brothers and Atreus' family? I'm Aiden, I go by Steadmister as well. So, how much leeway did Cyan give you lore-wise and story-wise, basically, regarding the history of the Myst franchise?
I think they gave us more leeway than we would have wanted. And I mean that in the best way, in the sense that they make your game and do what you want to do, and we wanted to be really faithful to the franchise, so we wanted to pass everything by to them, and they were at a stage where it's like, well, we sold it to Ubisoft so that you can we can concentrate on our things and not have to babysit you through so it was a little process where we had limited amount of access to them, and so we would gather our questions, but we did want their blessing on the thing, and I think on their end they didn't want to they didn't want us trumpeting that like, oh, it's science, but because it's like it's obviously it's not their game and it doesn't have the same flavor, same sensibilities of things. So they, but we wanted to talk with them as much as we could and take advantage. And they were like super giving, like they were super welcoming for us to that, and they would answer things and. They were like, yeah, no, if it makes sense to you, and go this and do that, and they supported us the whole way. So they were great, but we were like little kids, like wanting daddy's approval on thing. I go, do you think this works, and do you think this goes forward? But yeah.
Randa said about Myst 3 and 4 that if it wasn't for those games, he wouldn't have ever gotten to play a Myst game, and solve it himself, like, because he's always making them instead of actually getting to sit down and play one. So he enjoyed that aspect of it, right? Getting to see what other people do and think. And so,
although he does hate being in them. He doesn't.
He
like
really
that
does.
He's in it, and
he
had
said
lots of conversations.
Well,
about
he
that
said
with him.
after Riven he's never going to be in another one, and then he was in yours, and then he said after Myst 3 he was never going to be in another one, and then we had dinner with him after his day of shooting Myst 4, and he's like, "I'm truly never going to be in another one." And
I think it was in the contract. Ubisoft got they
never had to put him in.
No, that they had to put him. Like, he had to play Atris.
It's not his favorite thing.
No, absolutely. But he was good at. That was the thing, when we got the thing at Ubisoft, it was a big no, like, don't speak to Rand, don't access Rand, don't ask him anything about his brother, don't talk about anything, and
then he ends up being the nicest guy in the world.
Yeah, and then when I finally got access and spoke to him, and I was like, we really would have wanted you, to retake your roles for Akinar and your brother, and oh yeah, that would have been fun, and and I was like, ah, and I was and that's one of the things, as a young creative director, as a creative director in anything, a director in Hollywood and in video games, whatever, you're going to be told no all the time. Mm-hmm. That can't be like
it can't limit you.
Yeah. You're not going to get everything you want, but you can't let that first no stop you from trying harder. And I wish I understood that a little bit better at the time, and I would have pushed for that, because I thought it would have added something a little to our game as well. But I understand also like the position that they were in, and they were moving on from it, and it made sense.
So Riam, who may also be in the room with us now, asks what your most and least favorite parts or puzzles are in Myst 4.
Oh boy.
This one's for you, Seb.
Sorry, my favorite parts.
Most favorite or least favorite, either puzzles or parts.
I think I remember working very hard on. We're talking about Myst 4, right? Not the other Myst. I'm going back to the musical instrument and all the Centelmo's fire that are on the top of every crystals, and I created this printed circuit. Is this a real word in English? Okay. With all the little lights and everything. Yesterday I was looking the walkthrough again to remember. It was not the way I remembered it, but I remember that I have shown all this electrical device to an electrician to ask him, in my imaginary world, is this possible? This can be working, and I think that this is my favorite puzzle. That you have to go in the one room to gather electricity, the other room, and then to release some to fetch the other that are far away. Voila, for me.
So I think that's about all that we have time for this panel. But these three panelists and Khatie will be on our final panel of the day. So if your question didn't get answered, you'll have another shot. Mm-hmm. So we'll wrap it up there. Thank you all for your participation.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.